All right, for tomorrow's test, keep in mind I am not spoon-feeding you the answers, ladies and gentlemen. You do actually need to study tonight. You need to look at everything, and you need to be prepared for tomorrow's test. It's going to be the hardest test you've had in a while. I'm trying to cover all the information. I'm going to cover a bunch of stuff today, but it is important that you are taking this test seriously because I am not holding your hands, my darling. So, on your focus on number 5, you should have a category for narcotics where we are listing also the specific drugs that fall under that category, like opium, morphine, and heroin. Okay, these are all drugs under narcotics. You need to have that example there. Is this where we left off?
Yes.
Okay, so all of these drugs are used for their pain-killing feeling. Like you don't feel anything. If you're on heroin, you're just like, oh my God. If you're on morphine, they use it as a painkiller at the hospital and all that stuff. And then you finally have the category of hallucinogens. Quickly. What I'm doing today is more important than this. Hallucinogens are psychogenic drugs. They create false sensory information. Okay, so your 4th category should be on number 5, should be hallucinogens. When we talk about hallucinogens, the most popular one is LSD. PCP is number 2. Ecstasy is number 3. Of the most popular hallucinogens. Your textbook puts marijuana under a hallucinogen. Depending on the textbook you read, depends on its category.
What else would be good?
It has its own category because it's not really a hallucinogen as an LSD is a hallucinogen. Like if you take a hit of LSD, which is what they refer to taking it, you can play with giants, get trampled by spiders. Like it's like super sensory triggered. Marijuana is not quite to the same level, and that's why it's usually put in its own category because it has a mixture of different other symptoms. All right, we good? So you got LSD, PCP. You also have ecstasy. Mescaline also gets in there. That's peyote. It's what the Native Americans used to smoke out in the West and stuff like that. People die of it still to this day. They overtake it. No? Okay. And marijuana would be technically part of it. All right. Are you ready for a mouse party?
Yes.
Good. Me too. Oh, yeah. We have LSD. You can see him seeing his hand blur in front of him. We got cocaine. We got alcohol. We've got meth. We've got marijuana. We've got, this guy copied my best dance move. I'm kind of pissed. Ecstasy. And then we also have heroin. What do we want to see first? Heroin it is. This is what I do in my free time.
Before heroin enters the system, inhibitory neurotransmitters are active in the synapse. These neurotransmitters inhibit dopamine from being released.
Okay, so on your brain chart, I would flip it over. When I talk about a drug, I would write, so right now I'm doing heroin, so I'd write down heroin, okay? And I would write whatever neurotransmitter I'm discussing. So right now I'm talking about dopamine. So I would take notes. I'm going to tell you what to write down. I'd write them down. Tomorrow you have a bunch of questions about neurotransmitters and how they're affected by drugs. So yes, this is kind of funny. Okay, my ecstasy mouse is my favorite. The LSD one also makes me giggle. Okay, it's funny. It's an easier way to talk about drugs. Okay, I'm going to talk about what it feels like. I'm going to talk about the outcome of it, the repercussions of taking it. It's important that you understand both because tomorrow on your test you're going to have a scenario. This person is experiencing this, and this. What drug are they on? Then you're going to have the experience of the question is dopamine is being reuptaked over and over and over again in the neural pathway. What is that one? That one's cocaine. You'll have to know both. Is everyone clear on the expectation for tomorrow? So today is not just sitting here giggling, looking at mice. It's actually really important, making sure you're taking notes, even though I'm going to cover some really interesting stuff. All right, so heroin. Okay, it is dealing with dopamine.
When the body's natural opiates activate opiate receptors, the release of inhibitory neurotransmitters is shut down. Without inhibition, dopamine can be released.
Okay, so when we were talking about neurons and neurotransmitters and all that stuff, I kept telling you it was coming back, right? Okay, so we remember these things are called vesicles, and they hold your neurotransmitters, okay? So here is your axon terminal, your terminal buttons. Remember how the vesicles come to the edge of the axon terminals and they release into the synapse, and then you have receptor sites that are attached to the dendrites. So all of this is coming back to us, okay? So when you have heroin pushes dopamine into the synapse. Now, with heroin, that makes it different. Instead of like cocaine, when cocaine deals with dopamine, it kind of keeps hitting the receptor site over and over again. So people who are on cocaine literally twitch, right? Have you ever seen any, like, I'm not saying in your personal life. I mean, it's a pretty hardcore drug to see someone just walk around on a Tuesday on cocaine. But have you ever seen in a movie someone on cocaine? They literally twitch. They're literally sitting there and they're like super antsy. Someone who takes heroin is literally, they don't move. You're lying on a couch, you're lying on the floor, you're lying in bed. Okay, that's it. All you do is lie. And the reason is because dopamine literally attaches itself to the receptor site. So instead of a normal neural transduction, where the vesicles release the dopamine into the synapse, the dopamine sends it to your receptor site, and then it goes back to your vesicles. Instead of having that normal neural transduction, what happens is the dopamine literally binds, and I would write that, binds to the receptor. Dopamine binds to the receptor. So instead of, you know how when someone makes you laugh, you get that little bubble of like happiness? Like it makes you laugh for a second, yes? No, we've never laughed before?
No.
We've never experienced that before. That's so weird. That's really awkward. I laugh all the time. I love to laugh because it gives you like a little high, you know what I mean? You're like, Okay? With heroin, what it does is that it's like that super high all the time.
Heroin mimics natural opiates and binds to opiate receptors, turning off dopamine inhibition. Dopamine is allowed to flood the synapse, producing immediate feelings of sedation and well-being.
Okay? So, people who are high on heroin are like, and they're literally lying there. Now, the problem, there's a lot of problems with heroin. There's a lot of problems with heroin. It is the most addictive. I'd write that down. It is the most addictive drug there is. It also has the shortest high. So, you take heroin, you inject it into your bloodstream, typically. I mean, no one really smokes heroin. That would be just the weirdest. You don't take it really in pills. It's pretty much just injected in. So you inject it into you, and you're just like, Your high is only going to last about 3 to 4 hours. But it is the high of the high of the high. It is the highest thing as, like, lack of feeling, you're ever going to have. Okay? It's like 900 times your normal level. Like, it's obscene. So what happens is that all of your dopamine levels of your receptor sites that pick up any sense of happiness now need 900 times your natural level. Are you ever going to feel happiness ever again? No, because your tolerance for dopamine is 900 times its natural level. So if you are one of the very, very, very few who are a heroin survivor, which means, you're a recovering addict, you will not feel any type of happiness, satisfaction, comfort, sedation. You'll never feel relaxed ever again because your brain receptors can't do it. You have to understand, if you do something, there's always an equal reaction to it, correct? So keep in mind, with heroin, it gives you this high of high, lasts about 3 to 4 hours, and then it's a straight plummet into withdrawal. People who take heroin back to back because the high is so intense and the withdrawal is so intense that within a matter of 8 hours, you've taken heroin probably twice. Which means you're like 10 times more likely to overdose off of heroin than you are cocaine, which is the second highest overdose rate. People who take, give me a second, people who take heroin do not come back from heroin. I don't know if you heard the conversation. One of my students was asking me, like, well, Miss Bennett, like, you know, what happens if you take heroin? Do you take cocaine too? No. Anyone who is like uses drugs, they don't touch heroin unless they're just like, I'm done. Like, kill me now. I don't want to live anymore. Let's take heroin. No one on a typical Tuesday is like, you know what, man? It's been a rough Tuesday. I'm going to take some heroin tonight. It's going to be great. No one casually takes heroin, ladies and gentlemen. People are taking it in higher levels today in 2017 because people are addicted to opioids. We've heard of the opioid crisis. It's killing people in Massachusetts like crazy. We have thousands and thousands of kids who are in foster care right now because their parents are dead or they're addicts because of opioids. So what happens is that people get addicted to painkillers like oxycodone, any of those over-the-counter things, and they can't get those drugs anymore, and so they decide to take the stupid jump to heroin because they cannot live without the drugs, and heroin's a huge jump up and high, but people don't come back. No one really comes back from heroin, ladies and gentlemen. Every once in a while you hear of a couple people who are recovering heroin addicts. They're very few and far between. Normal people like you and I are not going to survive a heroin addicts. We're not. It's your superstar celebrities who have millions and millions and millions of dollars and can pay for drugs to help take you down from those highs and kind of get you to like a baseline. If you take heroin, you're never going to have any sense of happiness ever again, and essentially you use up all of like the sensations throughout your body, so you feel nothing. Nothing, unless you're high on heroin, which makes people take it. Isn't that crazy? No? You don't think that's crazy? What do you got?
So like when you overdose, like what happens to like what does the heroin do?
What do you mean when you overdose?
Like what happens to your body when you overdose? Like
you die.
I know, but like what makes you die?
Oh, it's your heart gives out. Your heart gives out. You start vomiting. You start having all these other issues, heart palpitations. You just puke and you die.
Right.
You choke on your own vomit. It's not like a beautiful thing. Like you're literally choking on your own vomit, and that's how you die. And your friend who's probably high with you is literally probably giggling at the fact that you're dying.
That happened.
Yeah. It's not like this beautiful poetic death. You're dying with an injection in your arm. So, heroin!
Neurons with opiate receptors are in parts of the brain responsible for the transmission of pain signals, stress response, and emotional attachment. Our body's opiates are natural painkillers, effective when we have sustained massive injury. This is why morphine, a drug related to heroin, is used as a painkiller.
All right, which mask do we want to see now?
Ecstasy.
Ecstasy? I love. This is literally my best move. That dance move is literally the only move I have. So I'd write ecstasy on your paper.
Serotonin transporters are responsible for removing serotonin molecules from the synaptic cleft after they have done their job.
Okay, so ecstasy is dealing with serotonin, ladies and gentlemen, so I'd write down serotonin.
Ecstasy mimics serotonin and is taken up by serotonin transporters. In fact, ecstasy is more readily taken up than serotonin itself.
Okay, so serotonin in your body is responsible for carrying information to other parts of your body, correct? All of your sensations, your kinesthetic, all of that, skin sensation, visual information, hearing, auditory information is all being carried to your brain by serotonin. Okay? All of your sensations are tied to it.
This interaction with ecstasy alters the transporter. The transporter becomes temporarily confused and starts to do its job in reverse. The transporter starts transporting serotonin out of the cell.
Yes, I did refill it. Nice. Okay, so when we're talking about serotonin, so people who are high on ecstasy, if you're high on ecstasy, what are you doing? Where are you most likely? Dancing! Yes! No one takes ecstasy to sit on their couch and have a quiet evening at home, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, you take ecstasy to go dancing. Okay, raves are the most common place people go to take ecstasy. The reason is because the lights are like super, super trippy. They're like super, super intense, and it's just like, seen these lights before. And it's like super, super intense. The other real big reason is because serotonin deals with all of your sensation. Apparently, anything like touch of your skin is like super intense. Like, oh my God. So people who are on ecstasy are literally just like rubbing up and down on each other, which is why like at like rave parties, everyone's like climbing all over each other. The reason is because it's like super, super like sensuous and like it's like overwhelming the sensations that are coming out of it. Okay, hearing when people who are on ecstasy, they're like, I can feel the music. The music speaks to me. And it's because they're hearing it at such an intense level because there's so much serotonin that's processing the lights, the sound, the skin, that it's like over exposing your brain to all of these external stimulants, and it's like overwhelming for your brain. And that's why people who are on like ecstasy have like super big eyes, and they're just like, wow, and they're just like doing little light sticks. You know what I mean? They're doing little light sticks and they're rubbing against the people next to them. Then they do the light sticks a little more, and they're like, the music, man, it speaks to me, and they just do all that. So, the problem with ecstasy is that it overexposes your brain. You're going to want to write this down. It overexposes your brain, so you have dulled your vision, hearing, touch. Every sensation is dulled. So people who take ecstasy on a regular basis become sex addicts. The reason is people who take ecstasy have sex. That's like they're one of the big things, I guess. Okay? Because it feels so amazing because your body is like feeling everything at like 100 times normal. So people who take ecstasy typically have sex, and then after they come off that high, it essentially dulls all of your senses, including the feelings from like sex and stuff. So everything, nothing feels the same, nothing tastes the same, nothing feels like it should feel. So people take ecstasy in order to feel and see colors and taste food the way they used to. It dulls everything out, and it actually slows down your brain's ability to like physical movements of like hand-eye coordination. It literally starts dragging that down. Remember, it has to have an equal and opposite reaction, correct? As high as you high, there has to be a pitfall. You're using so much serotonin in your brain, processing all of this information, that it literally dulls it from ever being able to process that information. Hand-eye coordination is less. Stuff like that. There was a couple baseball players in the 80s who took a bunch of ecstasy, and they ended up having to quit the game within a year or two. They just didn't have the hand-eye coordination. It's because they used ecstasy. Huh?
I'm sorry. Like a big detail.
You talk about ecstasy often?
No, I don't know. It's weird.
So, ecstasy, people who take it go out and party and stuff like that.
The excess serotonin becomes trapped in the synaptic cleft. As a result, it binds again and again to the receptors, overstimulating the cell.
Okay? So that's why people who are on ecstasy like to dance and stuff. They like rub their hands all over their bodies. They're like, I'm so sensual. Because everything becomes like super, super intense and like the feeling and stuff like that. However, sex will never feel the same. Anyone touching you will never feel the same. You touching yourself, nothing feels the same. So those people who take ecstasy, they typically become sex addicts, and they have to like bump up, just to have the normal feelings of anything, any like sex, taste, vision, any of that just starts disappearing. Isn't that crazy? So crazy.
Ecstasy affects serotonin pathways responsible for mood, sleep, perception, and appetite. Ecstasy also indirectly interacts with the reward pathway. The excess serotonin stimulates a milder release of dopamine along the reward pathway, giving ecstasy slightly addictive properties.
There you go. So, all right, who do you want to see next? LSD is one of my faves. One of my faves. My little man's just tripping over here. Oh. Get in the chair. Yeah.
LSD acts almost exclusively on serotonin neurons. LSD chemically resembles serotonin and elicits its effect by binding to serotonin receptors.
Okay, so LSD is dealing with serotonin. I would write that down. LSD is like no other drug. LSD cannot be broken down by your body or flushed out of your body. Like alcohol gets absorbed into your body, and then the water in your body is what pushes it out. Yes? Okay? And that's why you become dehydrated or have a hangover, because your body, it takes so much water to break down alcohol, and your body becomes incredibly dehydrated. Ta-da, you have a hangover. LSD doesn't break down. So, if your parents were in school in the 60s and 70s, they probably did LSD. I am so certain my mom took LSD while she was in college. Like, I just know it, but she'll never admit it, which is fine. Anyway, when you take LSD, because it doesn't break down, it gets reabsorbed into your spinal cord. So, about 5 years ago, there was a guy who was like in his 50s or 60s year old. He was driving home from work. He left work. On his way home, he got into a car accident. Car accident was just a fender bender, not a big deal. But when the car hit him, he cracked his back in the same spot that he was storing his LSD from when he was in college, and he took LSD. So when the police got to the scene, the guy was tripping on acid. He was literally having an LSD experience. So, it was, a huge problem. The police officer was like, "Are you high right now?" And the guy's like, "I don't know." And he's like, "Officer," and just was going off. It was just completely high as a kite on LSD. Had no idea where he was. They contacted his office and was like, "Did he take a hit of LSD in your parking lot?" And they're like, no. The thing is that it gets stored in your spinal cord. So I'm pretty sure my mom took LSD. It's sitting in Anne's spinal cord. So she only took it once, which I would assume she probably only took once. She doesn't seem like a wild child. However, she used to smoke cigarettes, and that's just so wild, because my mom is such an Annie Banani do right now, and just the wildest thing. So now, if she gets into a car accident and she pops her back where the LSD is stored, all of a sudden, my sanctimonious mother, who is perfection on earth, is going to be high on LSD. That is the day I want to be there. I'm just going to sit there and say, ha, 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 and just giggle. Just watching her on it. Yes?
When you say, you don't mean you mean cracking your knuckles, right?
Yeah, it's it's just like cracking your back. Not breaking your back and you're dead. But just if you pop your back. Well, do you take LSD?
No, I don't.
Okay. Then you're fine. But no, there's some people who have taken LSD and who crack their back, and they'll just get a little pop of LSD.
Okay.
Yeah. Isn't that the craziest thing? You'd just be in class, at your job site, and 50 years old, 30 years after you took the hit of LSD, you just crack your back, and you're just giants.
So does it build up? Or does
Yeah.
it, if you take more and more?
More and more, it just builds up. Your body can't break it down, so it just sits there. So if you only take one, if you only do it once, you're going to have a very small amount in your back, right? The more you take it, the more there's going to be there. But in that small amount that you have in your back, if you happen to crack it in the right place, ta-da! See,
So it's forever in your system?
it's forever in your system, and not until... once you crack it, so that guy cracks it, and it's obviously released back into his bloodstream. And then eventually it'll go back to his spinal cord. And then it'll sit there until he hits it again, and then it goes back into his bloodstream, and then it'll come back. It doesn't go away. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Except for the fact it can destroy your entire life. The guy got in big trouble. Yeah.
Wait, so what if the person who takes it and they always want to crack their back? They can be
Well, the more you crack your back, the less of a buildup it's going to be. Because every time you crack it, it kind of dissipates and then comes back. It's just not going to, you can't wear it out. It's reusable. What do you got?
So there are a lot of cases in chiropractors where people go in and then they just get high off LSD.
I don't know how common it is.
Why?
but-
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, depending on how big the bubble is that you crack, you know what I mean? Depends on how big the reaction is. If you crack your back on a regular basis, you're not going to have that much of a buildup. Because, I crack my back all the time, so I have, little bubbles. But, that guy probably didn't crack his back that often, so he had just a massive bubble of LSD. When he cracked it in the accident, ta-da! crazy? Wow.
So what happens to serotonin? Like, how does it all happen?
Okay, so bringing us back to like this real stuff. Gross.
There are several types of serotonin receptors in the brain. Each is responsible for performing specific functions.
Okay, so
LSD interacts with particular receptors, but not always in the same way. Sometimes LSD may inhibit them, and sometimes it may excite them.
okay,
This is one reason why LSD has complex sensory effects.
So let me explain. Okay, I've already made it very clear that LSD is a weird drug already. Can we agree? Like heroin is going to work through your system. You're never going to be the same. You're never going to be the same after cocaine. You're never going to be the same after meth. Okay? But LSD is totally weird because it never leaves your system. It just kind of consolidates back. Okay? Another thing about LSD that makes it incredibly weird is there is no prediction of how it's going to affect you. If you take cocaine once, you know how it affects you. So essentially, you're going to have the same reaction the second time you take cocaine, correct? LSD, no promises, my friends. Okay? It affects different parts of your brain, and sometimes it inhibits, and sometimes it excites. So if you take LSD and you take a trip and you're playing with giants in a field, and you have a wonderful time playing with giants, then you're like, oh man, what a great trip. Then you take LSD a second time thinking you're going to be playing in a field with giants. Okay? Picking flowers, doing all this stuff. The second time you're being trampled by spiders. Imagine, okay, with LSD, it is a full sensation experience. You are seeing, hearing, and feeling things all over your entire body. It's false sensory information. I would write that down. It creates false sensory information. So not only are you seeing giants, you're feeling giants. You are feeling the grass on your legs. You are having a full false sensory information. If you're on a bad trip and you're being trampled by spiders, you feel them all over your body. You see them all over your body. And you can have that pressure on your chest, which is limiting your breathing. That is LSD. And you cannot predict. If you have a good trip, you could have a bad trip. You may only have good trips, good experiences where you're just running around playing with rainbows. Who knows? Or you could just have terrible ones. What do you got, Gabriel?
Could you get arrested for having an actual LSD?
Yes, it's completely.
Wait, did that dude in the car get arrested? He didn't have LSD on, like.
No, he got taken to the hospital.
That's my question. He didn't get arrested.
No, he didn't get arrested because the infraction happened like 30-something years prior. So he didn't get arrested for that. But I'm pretty sure the civil case was brought against him. So like he didn't get criminal charges, like the state didn't charge him, but the guy in the fender bender charged him, and he got sued by the guy personally, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's what it worked down to.
That's legendary arson influence.
There you go, Maddie. What do you got?
Didn't they originally create LSD like
Yeah, it's about mind expansion. People in the 60s and 70s were like, I want to know what my mind feels like. So they take LSD. You're going to see things in this false sensory information, and people say that's like expanding your mind and stuff like that. Whether you believe it or not, I mean, that's fine. The problem is that people who take bad trips, it gets really bad. Like there's been tons of cases of people who are on LSD who cut off their legs because they saw something on their leg and they had to cut it off. Like people go through like these crazy. If you're on a bad trip, man, you're on a bad trip. Like there's nothing you can do, and it lasts between 8 to 24 hours. So it's not like you're seeing fake stuff for like false sensory information for a couple of hours. Like it's the long haul, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine if you're on a bad trip and like you're in hell and there's something horrible attacking you and you have to survive for 8 to 12 hours because you really feel like it's there. Like, and that's the crazy thing about LSD is like you feel completely immersed in whatever you're seeing because you're seeing it, you're touching it, you're feeling it, and like it's everything. How you justify what's real today is because you can see it, you can touch it, you can taste it, all that, yes? It's the same thing that happens on the people who are on LSD and they have a problem distinguishing between reality and fake. Is that insane? No, thank you. I think we can all agree, if that's the high, what's the low? The outcome is that your brain gets essentially dulled. Sensations, cognition slows down. You're not going to be able to think as fast as you did previously. You're not going to be able to have as deep of thoughts as previously. Yeah, your brain just gets like overworked, so it just dulls it. Pretty crazy.
LSD and other
Marijuana's boring
hallucinogens
one.
excite a particular
Yeah.
region of the brain known as the
Cocaine is
locus
a good one.
ceruleus,
I
or
like cocaine.
LC. A single neuron from the LC may branch into many different sensory areas of the brain. The LC is responsible for feelings of wakefulness and evoking a startle response to unexpected stimulus.
All right, who do we want? What do you got, Eric? Hold on, what? I'm trying to hear you. What?
Is that also all the senses like ecstasy and
Well, absolutely, because it's all false sensory information, so it has to be sensations and stuff like that, which kind of helps it dulls you out completely. When you talk about sensations, we did heroin, we did ecstasy and stuff like that. Ecstasy is like you've worn them out. With LSD, it's kind of like the same thing. All right, who are we picking now? Marijuana is boring. We're going to use the appropriate terms, not slang. Which one? Let's do cocaine. I like the cocaine one, huh?
devil's lettuce?
No. Oh, Elijah, you were such a joy.
Cocaine.
Dopamine transporters are responsible for removing dopamine molecules from the synaptic cleft after they have done their job. Cocaine blocks these transporters, leaving dopamine trapped in the synaptic cleft. As a result, dopamine binds again and again to the receptors, overstimulating the cell.
Okay, so when we talk about heroin binds to the receptor site. So it's just like, and it's like this feeling of like, oh my God, this is amazing. And you just sit there. People who are high on heroin, they can't do anything except lie there. Either on like a couch, on a floor, or on a bed. That's all they do. You get high on heroin and you sit exactly where you got high. It's not a social drug. It is you high, lying on a carpet, lying on a couch, lying in a bed. That's it. Cocaine? Not the same. You take cocaine to go out. No one is going to sit at home. Someone was like, well, people take cocaine to do their homework.
What?
If you're taking cocaine to do your homework, you have so many bigger problems.
Gotta get rowdy.
I've never heard that before.
Someone with a straight face is like, yeah, people take it to do their homework. No. People use Adderall to do their homework. Cocaine is not going to help you focus, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so with cocaine, instead of heroin, which just binds and holds on, okay, like, so you sit there and do that. Cocaine just goes like that. It touches the receptor, gets off the receptor, back to the receptor, and stuff like that. So that's why people who are on cocaine are like, hey, hi, how are you? Oh my God, I love it. I love the outfit. Oh my God, let's go dancing. Oh my God, can we go dancing? It's going to be so much fun. Like, oh my God, isn't it hot in here? Oh my gosh. Oh, dancing. Are we dancing? We talked about this, didn't we? Like, yeah, right? Like, this is what we're happening, right? Like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, okay. So, oh my God, let's do something. What are we doing? People who are on cocaine are just all over the damn place because their brain is literally like short-circuiting. And they're twitching the entire time because the dopamine keeps going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The feeling of cocaine, apparently, is one of invincibility. They were just like, and you can do anything. People on cocaine, people on cocaine, the high lasts for about 3 to 4 days. I think you can see that you get your money's worth out of cocaine. Heroin, you're only high, but it is like the craziest high, the best high you'll ever have for 3 or 4 hours, and you go straight to hell. People who take cocaine, it lasts for like 3 to 4 days. No, you don't. No one takes cocaine to take a nice
So,
nap.
wait, so you get a lot of REM bounce back?
No, because you're depleting your brain, so you don't sleep as well and all that stuff.
But like after.
After you're depleting your brain and all that stuff.
Get some good sleep.
No, I don't think so. But people do sleep for a while after because it depletes your muscles. So what happens is people who take cocaine, they're going out and partying, right? Okay, they're going out and partying, they're going out and doing stuff. No one's sitting at home doing homework. You're going out and you're doing all this different types of stuff, and your brain is just like go, 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 and you're processing so much information so much faster. You're just like, yes, I know everything. And people who are on cocaine feel like they're invincible. They're faster, they're stronger, they're able to do things that they couldn't do without being on cocaine. So people on cocaine feel like Superman. Okay, all right. But the problem is with the high that high. The low of the low is that it completely depletes your muscles. That if you take cocaine, it takes years off your life, off of your heart, off of your actual muscles. Your physical strength depletes significantly after every high. Now, people, sometimes on their first, every once in a while, you hear about a teenager in Tampa who got high on cocaine who had a heart attack at age 17. Okay? The problem with it is that your heart's literally busting out of your chest. It's pumping so much oxygen, which makes your muscles stronger, which makes you able to do things. It gives you this high of a high, and people are just like, ah! And they go and do crazy, stupid things on cocaine. Gabriel.
You ever seen those videos
Of crackheads? I'm sorry, I don't know what you're referring to by crackheads. Are you talking about people who abuse cocaine?
Have you not seen those videos?
No, darling, it's not something I Google.
Like 9 crack ups and
9
And that's what I'm saying. It like,
I don't even
okay, that's what I'm saying though, guys. Like, think about it. If cocaine gives your muscles that much of like a Superman complex, there has to be a cost to it, correct? And the cost is it depletes your muscle strength. Okay, your muscles start literally dying off on you. People who abuse cocaine, do they have any muscle definition? No, they become super, super thin. They have no muscle tone. They become incredibly, incredibly drawn, super, super skinny. The reason why people take cocaine, a lot of celebrities used to really take cocaine because that super slender look used to be super, super popular. It still is to this day. And the reason is that cocaine doesn't make you hungry. Okay, and it gives you that muscle tone that like models and stuff like. When you don't eat, you have no energy. People like models take like heroin. No one takes heroin. Take cocaine in order to kind of continue and do all that. And people abuse it that way. Cocaine is your third most addictive drug. Okay, it's a going out drug. People use it to socialize and stuff like that. It makes you lose your inhibitions. You don't really care, and you feel like you have the strength of the world. You can die from your first hit of cocaine. It's not uncommon. People die. It's just like your heart explodes in your chest. Isn't that crazy? Like your heart just goes poof, and it dies.
How does meth make you
Huh?
feel? What does meth do?
We have to get there.
It's fine.
No, we're on cocaine. There we go. Meth is your third. What? Meth. Yes. So let's meet our meth mouse. Yes.
Dopamine transporters are responsible for removing dopamine from the synaptic cleft. Because meth mimics dopamine, it is taken into the cell by the dopamine transporters.
Okay, so it mimics dopamine.
Once inside the cell, meth enters the dopamine vesicles, forcing the dopamine molecules out. The excess dopamine in the cell causes the transporters to start working in reverse, actively pumping dopamine out of the cell and into the synapse.
Okay, so with heroin, dopamine binds to the receptor and it's like, ah, and you're just like, oh my god, heroin's so wonderful, correct? Cocaine, it bounces back and forth out the receptor side, which is why people twitch and they're like, hi, okay? People on meth are like, Okay, so on the high on meth is apparently about half the high of heroin, but it's a higher high than cocaine, which makes it the second most addictive drug because of that. When you're on meth, okay, your brain doesn't have like the like heroin, but it's not as like shaky as that one. It's kind of like you have like a super severe case of the giggles. Like you just sit in the corner of the room and you just laugh. And you just do all that. The problem with it is that when you come off of it, your brain is fried with all that dopamine, and it's in your sensory pathways. So what happens is people who take meth end up pulling at their ears and ripping their ears off, their eyes, and especially their flesh. If you've ever seen anyone who is who's addicted to meth currently, or maybe recovering, which isn't very many people, they have literally fingernail wounds on their skin because they're literally pulling up their own flesh because of the withdrawals. It makes it feel like your skin's on fire. Yeah, so you sit there and giggle for like 5, 6, 7 hours, and then your skin's on fire for about 24 hours. I think after 2 hours of feeling like your skin on fire, you would try to get meth again, wouldn't you? Absolutely, to escape that feeling, and that's why it's so addictive. What do you got, Maddie? What do you mean? Like on the pill, on meth?
Yeah, or when they want it.
When they want it, because they literally feel, Maddie, that their skin is on fire. Like they have like ants like running up their skin. They have like, all these sensory feelings on their skin, and the only way they can deal with it is either by pulling off their flesh or by taking meth again in order to get that giggly high feeling, and then they come down, and then they have the same problem. So when they're coming off of their high, which lasts about 6 hours, when they start coming down, they start having these like sensations about, and then they typically keep themselves high so they don't come off of it. And that's where that aggression and anger comes from, when they're coming down and they can't get it, because it feels like their flesh is burning off. If your flesh was burning off too, I bet you wouldn't be very pleasant, would you? No, you wouldn't. What's up?
Is resistance the same as tolerance?
Resistance? No. Resistance is an inability. Look it up in your book. What do you got, Nika?
So it like pushes the dopamine out into the synapse, and the dopamine just like sometimes hits.
It's kind of like floating around. That's what it's like doing. What's up?
Is all our testing?
Yes.